Hey guys, so I'm going to call this video a teacher fail, even though it's called the manipulation video. But why I'm calling it a teacher fail is that I, I realized, and First Hour can attest to this, that the bigger skill here, the bigger thing that we want to be doing, is to be able to manipulate numbers to work better for ourselves. We've talked about in class that the word manipulate means to change to work better for yourself. And sometimes you hear of manipulative people, and that's not necessarily a good thing. But in math, you can manipulate, you can move, you can change the numbers while following some simple rules to make it work better for you. So this is something that I should have taught before we introduced Learning Target 2 and 3. And next year I'll see this video and I'll remember that I need to address the manipulation piece as a whole before we get into the actual solving of equations, because this is the greater skill. And I think it was Gavin who in seventh period asked, when are we going to ever use this? And you might not, okay? There might not be a specific time in your life where you need to solve for X. There will be some careers where you'll use the solving equation stuff that we use today. But you might not. You might not use that ever again. But here's what you will use. You will use the skills that you attain in manipulating for good, and just kind of problem solving and picking apart and seeing, okay, what was done here and how can I undo it and how can I keep this balanced. So it's a lot about problem solving and figuring out the right way to do things. And so that's what we get out of these learning targets. So let's look at a couple. Now, the biggest thing to remember is that equations are like scales. Okay, the golden rule of algebra is that you do unto one side as you do to the other, kind of like the golden rule of life. Okay, so we really need to balance this out, and our balancing point is that equal sign. Okay, so we went through a couple of these in class. Now, if I want to isolate just the variable, let's say I want to isolate y. Okay, I want to isolate y. I want to get y by itself, so I want to make this into a y equals equation. Then I need to get rid of the 8x and the 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 8x from both sides. And I'm going to have 3y's equal negative 9 minus 8x. All right. Now I subtracted 8x because the opposite of positive is negative. So to get rid of 8x completely, I need to subtract from it, and that's being added to the y. I always look at the relationship to what's going on between it and what I want to be isolated. So I needed to completely get rid of it. Now over here, why can't I take negative 9 and subtract 8x from it and that be 1x or negative 1x? Well, because these aren't like terms. This is apples, this is bananas. You can't take away bananas from apples because they're not the same. So that's what I have to do there, okay? Now this is 3 times y. So to undo this times, I'm going to divide by 3. Now, I have to divide everything by 3 because I can cut these apples into 3 parts and I can cut these bananas into 3 parts. So dividing by 3, 3 divided by 3 is 1y is left, negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3, and negative 8 divided by 3 doesn't come out even, so I'm just going to leave it as 8 thirds x, and I can rewrite that as y equals negative 8 thirds x minus 3 to keep that variable in front. So that's isolating one of the variables. Okay. Now notice I did everything. When I subtracted 8, I subtracted 8 over here. When I divided by 3, I divided by 3 over here. Everything I'm doing is balanced all the way across. Okay. Equations are a lot like knots, a lot like problems that you have to think about when you're untying a knot. Like if you have this scrambled up little knot over here, you have to really look at what do you think people did to get this knot? How do I undo what's being done? This is how I saw a volleyball net just the other day, and thank you to the 8th graders that wrapped it up like this. But to undo this mess of a knot, we had to look and try to figure out how did they do this? How did they get it to look like this? And understanding what happened to it makes it easier to undo what they did. So think about that as you're trying to solve these equations. How can I undo what's being done? You undo addition by subtracting. You undo multiplication by dividing. Let's look at a little more difficult one here. We did this one in class 2, And let's isolate x again here. Let's get x by itself. Or last time we isolated y, we'll isolate x. Okay, so I have to get rid of this 2 plus y and this negative 4. I'm going to undo the 2 plus y first because I see that it's being divided by. Okay, and that's our first step, is we want to get rid of this. So to undo division, I'm going to multiply by 2 plus y. And if I look at 2 plus y as a fraction, that's going to be 2 plus y over 1. Okay, so if I multiply this, then this will cancel with this on this side. But now, here's my scale. If I did it over here, I have to do it over here. So 2 plus y needs to be undone over here as well. What I'm left with is x minus 4 equals, now let's distribute here. 6 times 2 and 6 times y is going to give me 12 plus 6y. And then over here I need to get rid of the negative 4. Undoing minus 4 is going to be adding 4. And over here I can either add 4 onto the end, or I notice that I am adding 4, which is kind of like adding bananas, and I have some bananas I can add them to. Okay, I can add this 4 to this 12 because those are like terms. So I have x equals now 16 plus 6y. If I want to rewrite that in correct math form, that would be 6y plus 16, having that variable first. So these are just, this is a good skill, guys. We're going to need to manipulate specifically this year for a couple units coming up, specifically in your next 4 years for your advanced algebra classes, your calculus classes, all of that kind of stuff. In college, any math classes you take there, you'll use this. And beyond that, in the real world, this is just good problem solving. You could probably do a bunch of puzzles and learn the same stuff you're learning here that will be valuable out in the real world, but you might as well do it in math class when you have the time. All right, thanks, guys.